No, we just plaster it.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, but like I said,
Ready? Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. Are you ready?
Okay. What do you mean? PC and
I call this meeting to order at 4:11 p.m. We'll start with roll call.
Here.
Lydia, here. Isaac, is that?
Here.
Caitlin, here. Katia, here. Joel. Joel. Yes.
Here.
Ian.
Here.
Ted. Megan. Benjamin. Benjamin. French.
Here.
Leandre.
Here.
Christopher Blue.
Here.
Aaron.
Here.
Eddie.
Here.
Rita. Here. Adrian. Adrian. Dana. Dana. Jason.
Here.
Nicholas.
Here.
Kate. Ken. Matthew. Here. Daniela. Daniela. Francisco. Here. Anish.
Here.
Gavin.
Here.
Hello.
Here.
Luca.
Here.
Aura. Addison.
Here.
Katya. Here. Veronica. Here. Phoebe. Here. Michi.
Here.
Jin. Jin. Okay. He's here. Oh, okay. Oh, you need Jin like Sean. Yeah, I know. Okay. Iron. Here. Okay. Moving on to approval. Oh, Jane. Other Jane.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from May 1st, 2024? Chris.
I move to approve.
Javier.
A second.
Moved by Chris, seconded by Bruce, and objections. Seeing none, minutes are approved. Moving on to public comment.
All right, hey guys, I know we have a long meeting ahead, so I'm gonna keep this short. But this is a Macintosh, and TLDR is an important milestone since it kickstarted the era of personal computing. FYI, Steve Jobs launched it right here at Flint Center just over 40 years ago. One of the biggest breakthroughs in modern computing happened right here at our campus, and personally, I think it's really cool. As we all know, Flint Center is getting torn down, and I think it's a damn shame, because to me, what makes a good school great is its history. And while there isn't much that we can do about demolition, what we can do is to celebrate the achievements and pay our respects to this monument of innovation. There can be something simple like a reel, if marketing is down for some extra but meaningful work, or I can take it as a personal project. All right, that's it.
Are there any public comments?
Of course. No, of course not.
Oh, so there was a charger left in, like left here after last week's Senate meeting, so. Yeah, okay. You can't respond, by the way, public comment. Yeah.
Are there any other public comments? Moving on to advisory. Senate.
Oh, we should have scholarships, I think, submitted to financial aid by this date, for the student leader compensation. And, I guess one other thing, I will be sending out, by the end of the week, all to the current executive officers and the new executive officers, the codes and bylaws and such in editable Word format. With the, the necessary edits at least started, and so for the committees to finish up. And I will include the deadlines to get those to the Senate. There's code changes require 2 Senate meetings, 1 information discussion meeting, and then a discussion action meeting. Bylaws changes requires 3 Senate meetings, so 2 information discussion meetings, and then 1 discussion action meeting. The deadline, actually, I can give you the dates right now, because it's, so the last Senate meeting, if you don't know, is the June 12th. June 5th is the what is it? The Student Leadership Recognition Gala. And then, so the meeting before that will be the second to last meeting. So that is the May 29th. So that will be the last date code changes can be submitted for information discussion. And so the last date the bylaws can be submitted for information discussion is May 15th, next Wednesday. So I know that we will be discussing those in admin. And working on
There's a sign-in sheet going around. I don't know what's talking about the sign-in sheet, but it ensures that we're able to continue giving you all meals, so make sure that you sign it.
Okay, and so speaking of meals, we are going to be feeding you a dinner again tonight, but hopefully we won't be here till like 9 o'clock. We're getting food from Teriyaki Madness. So there's chicken teriyaki, there's spicy teriyaki, there's tofu, there's a beef option. And the chicken teriyaki and the spicy teriyaki are halal meat. So for those of you who have preferential dietary needs, then that is tonight. Also, we just learned that tomorrow there might be a potential walkout. It's a pro-Palestinian protest tomorrow, I think at 3 or 3:30. We just got word of it. It hasn't yet been approved by our office because we're still trying to figure out who actually is coordinating and sponsoring this protest. And while as an institution, we highly encourage and support the exchange of free ideas, we also at the same time need to preserve and uphold our standards of civility and also a mutual respect for each other. So if you're here on campus tomorrow, there is a likely chance that there might be a walkout over in the quad. But it's also, as I understand it, an arts.
It's getting postponed.
Oh, it is getting, oh,
Yeah.
okay, you can make that in your mouth, then, okay, all right then. But, what I want to say to that is, I think it's wonderful that, our students are engaged and kind of, paying attention to what's going on in the world, so, okay. And then I think that was it for me. Oh, and then for, the new Senate, have your training this Friday from 12 to 4, right in this room. Okay, and we will be providing lunch.
Marisa or Dana, do you have any advice on that?
Yes, along with training, I did want to emphasize that tomorrow, if someone mentioned it, I apologize, I missed it, but tomorrow we have a guest speaker event in the conference rooms from 12 to 1. A guest speaker from the Active Minds organization named Abraham Scully, a fantastic speaker who our campus has had in the past, speaking on mental health and destigmatizing mental health, providing tools and resources around that. It should be a great event, and we actually have some books that he wrote that we'll be giving away for free to attendees. And we'll have some light snacks as well. So please do come. It's an event that was put on in part by DASG. So please do support, the event organizers that put this on, and, put funds towards this. It's a co-sponsored event along with ICC and Mentors at De Anza and the Active Minds Club. But additionally, for those of you who have already been elected and will be elected tonight, it is something that can count towards one of your training checklist requirements. We do ask that you attend at least one on-campus workshop training. And we had a list of some of the potential offerings. A couple have already passed with Queer Now and a consent workshop. This one will count for that as well. So if you haven't already, check that off. And for those of you who haven't learned of the training checklist because you're still just getting elected, this is a great opportunity to check that off while also getting some very valuable information. So I'll be sending a reminder email about that tonight, along with the agenda for Friday's training once we have our final list of elected folks. So please come, please, if you're coming on campus, and if you weren't, if you could try from 12 to 1 in the conference rooms upstairs. I think that's the major thing. I thank you to everyone who helped out with the resource fair today. It looked great. And yeah, we just have a lot of stuff going on. And I do just want to, add, to what Hunju noted about the potential walkout tomorrow. I am in contact with, some of the students organizing it. And if I'm, hoping to support with, options moving forward, but just make sure that you're being mindful of not disrupting the college. And it's been this one. Okay, all right. Captions did not get that. So I'm hopeful that that I can support with how it can look like in the future. Yeah, that's it.
You, Dana, do you have any advisor?
No, I don't today. Thank you.
Moving on to Senate announcements. Matthew. As I've been talking about for the last couple of Senate meetings, the applications for the VITA and DASG Student Leadership Awards are now open. This award is for any student who have exhibited leadership in some way. So that could be a club, government, an internship, a job, a resource, a special project. You may nominate yourself and you could nominate other people as well. Recipients of the award, there are many of them, and you'll have the award noted on your transcript in the graduation program and an invite to the Student Leadership Gala. I posted the link to the form in the announcements channel in the Discord, but you can also go to the VITA homepage, just Google De Anza VITA, and it'll be the second item on our homepage. There's a link to the form. We have extended the deadline to May 19th, but I do ask that you get your nominations in sooner than later. And I also encourage all senators and chairs to talk about this in your committee meetings for the rest of this week or next week, and please tell your interns and any guests. Thank you.
In case you haven't heard, DHG is gonna be giving out free Scantrons now to students. It's one Scantron per student per day. They'll be giving them out at the OCL. So if you know any friends that might need a Scantron for any midterms or finals, just go to the OCL. If you know any professors where their classes might need Scantrons, let them know as well too. It's available while supplies last. Thank you.
Any others? Moving on to student trip.
Yeah, okay, so Monday night was my last board meeting. So I guess this is gonna be my last report for DSG. So on Monday we met. As a result of the grant, the California Department of Education approved in collaboration with the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Higher level classes for English as a second language will be introduced to prepare students for their healthcare training programs. And as a result, the DANZA will receive $43,264 in grant. Hourly fees for renting the VPAC will increase from $430 to $495 for the standard and $340 to $391 if the event is not popular. Maintenance for the projector in the Fuji Planetarium will begin following a maintenance cycle from now until it nears the end of its life cycle in approximately 2029. The district will collaborate with SJSU and a 24-hour dispatch to exchange information and send or receive officers if help is needed. The DHG budget was approved, and with big respect to finance, that was sitting there for 2.5 hours while we deliberated on allocating a $75 million budget or $75 million fund. So that has been allocated. 55 million are going to go for Kansas projects and infrastructure, and the rest is budgets. And if necessary, we will take from the $200 million housing fund, if necessary. I just wanted to give a couple of closing remarks, like putting from the finance. I left you guys your presentation and the DHG dashboard if you guys would like to play it back. I also left my closing speech as well, if you'd like to see that. Just wanted to say really big thanks to the DHG advisors and the DHG community for keeping contact with me regarding district level issues, for guiding me and giving me the chance to foster relationships that I'm sure will last a very long time. And also like to give a very big thanks to Iris as well for getting me gifts for finishing our term. That was really kind. But if you guys can come, Iris's first meeting is going to be on June 10th at the district office. If you guys can come, that would be great. Otherwise, yeah.
Moving on to external shared governance.
I met with curriculum committee today. We talked about upper division coursework form in order to approve this by the state as a program. The curriculum has not been confirmed, only the prerequisites. We are discussing the form, not the course outline, so that we may present that in an upper division course rather than actually approving the course. And this is in relation to the automotive department, I think. Discussed initially reviewing 1 to 2 automotive courses, 3 GE courses in person, moving into cohorts when easy to reviewing, waiting on forms from DE paperwork to enter Facebook team for the curriculum committee to review. We reviewed ELIT 38, IHP 19, the audio version of that, LIB 53, and additionally reviewed and anticipated the changing of groups and understanding how each group reviewed each course outline, SLOs, etc.
That met yesterday, and we continued our discussion on setting up the program planning committee instead of having program planning and also done the graph would be done separately. So council talked about that, and then we also started the next round of personnel hiring discussions again. So this week we're just kind of going over it broadly, and then I think next week we're gonna start moving through. Talk more about that.
Yeah.
Academic Senate met last Monday. We approved the hiring committees for the Associate Dean of Student Affairs and Anthropology Instructor, Sociology Instructor, Vice President, Administrative Services. We endorsed the DASG block scheduling resolution, so yay, woo-hoo. We went over some of the board meeting items, and we're just going through the Constitution, bylaws, and APDP. And then we also went over the program consultation committee, like a proposal first. Yeah.
Are there any other shared governance reports? Yeah.
Classified Senate met yesterday and the chancellor, visited to kind of explain some things about, or to answer some questions that they had put together about the medical facility. And I realized I forgot to actually include what the questions are, but the main things related to DHG was that for the flea market, in like the years when they start construction and all, they'll have to look into like relocating or like figuring out like how to work around the medical facility. And they kind of just said it's like your problem to figure it out. So like, it kind of just sounded like they're like, he's not really getting involved with that, and it's up to the advisors and the flea market people. So that was like the main issue that I think was.
Are there any other? There's one of our interns from the housing task force. They met on May 3rd, and the board will make a decision on Monday regarding housing sites. He also mentioned the task force is collecting comments and concerns folks might have leading up to the decision. And, I think PAC will also present this decision to DHG next week. Moving on to internal DHG committee.
The marketing and publicity, and the content posts, you really have bringing the market on the post, and then, remember to get the scan funds.
So finance, as Javier already mentioned, we did our presentation on Monday. So round of applause to everyone that worked on that. And I believe I also received an email as well, forwarded from Karen Chu or Ken and or Dennis, the president of, so the president of our college wanted to also express her gratitude as well as saying that we did a really good job. That's really cool. So thank you again to all the senators and interns and everyone that worked on the presentation. It went great. And so now finance is kind of basically done with the budget process. And so now we're kind of just focusing on working on our committee projects, just like continuing those. So that's about it for us.
Administration, well, is finishing election today, final day for internal election. We also talked about potential bylaw changes, especially involving diversity seats and how the role should be or how they should be done. Also went over some UCLA updates. That's gonna probably take a year and a half, I guess, for everything to be implemented, but we'll update you on anything that I know.
So programs met yesterday and we talked about the, how the wildflowers are going. Then we talked about the bikes, which, I think Anish is going to get started working on, just like for the bike program, whatever is like, getting the bikes back in, the dealing with the new fleet, whatever, that's it. And then we also talked about the, recap the Hachi main flea market that happened last week. And then, also updates on the mini flea market, and we chose some vendors. We voted on the vendors that we'll have, and then we talked about the ITC speaker event, which is again happening tomorrow, 12 to 1, and then we did carnival updates. So we're waiting on approval for some things, and then hopefully we can get started with them.
Moving on to consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve both?
I made sure that we did this one.
Moved by Caitlin, seconded by Virginia. Seeing none, consent calendar is passed. Moving on to first business item, this is the DM the developer. Hackathon event budget request is item to discuss and possibly approve up to 5,500 for the developer.
Hello, everyone. I'm gonna keep it short because we do have internal elections after this. First of all, thank you to finance for approving this and letting us be here. DeAnza Developers is hoping to be a CIS affiliated program, which can host multiple hackathon events and social events for mostly the STEM majors across campus. That's like open to everybody. You can just show up. And our future plans for now include hosting 2 hackathons. One of them we're hoping to host next month, starting the 7th of June. And one we hope to host in the next academic year in late October. And we also want to host a goodbye social for all the people who are transferring out. We have a few details here. So for the hackathon for next month, we're gonna have a special edition hackathon, special emphasis on engineering. It's gonna be a smaller scale hackathon. We will be providing hardware and supplies to the students. We are hoping to have workshops and guest speakers. We're gonna have prizes which are yet to be decided. and it is going to be open to all Leander students and hopefully Whipple students too. Moving on to our flagship hackathon, which we're gonna be hosting in fall next academic year, the Leander Hacks 3.0. This has been ongoing for 3 years. These are photos from the previous Leander hackathon, and I think like about 200 people showed up. It's always a massive success. And yeah, this has been going on for 3 years, so that's our flagship hackathon. Talking about the Goodbye Social, small event for all the STEM majors who are transferring out. We're gonna have free food for you guys, and not just Costco pizza, more than that, and we're gonna have fun games and stuff, so, yeah, that's pretty much it. We do have a spending breakdown, but before that, any questions or anything that anyone wants to, like, know more about?
Alright, so far there are no questions. You guys can still think of questions, but I just want to bring up kind of the technicalities of this motion. For like, if we're gonna, there are no questions, if people want to make a motion. So as Aditi had said, there are technically two parts of what they're asking for, because they're. Oh, there you go. So they're asking for money for this spring, right? For like their event this spring, they're also asking for money for next year as well for the ends of for DASG 3.0. So in order to make the where's the, oh, here it is. Finance. Yeah. Oh yeah, this one. Yeah. So if you want to make a motion, there's two motions basically to make. One for the money this year and one for the money next year. And so the way you would say that is here, you would approve this much money, 2,750. If let's say you want to do the full amount for spring 2024, like in basically this line, and then the next one would be this one here for the fall one. You also have the option to not give the full amount, also have the option to give one or the other, also have the option to give both, but yeah. Oh, and also there's one more thing. During finance, so basically there was an issue with the, kind of an issue with the budget process here where the person that, the budgeter that signed off on this request was not technically a part of the CIS department. So we asked Aditya to basically change the budgeter for someone to be from the CIS department. So we added an additional stipulation that said, we'll give you the money if you have a budgeter from the CIS department. So that's just like what this extra part is. So again, if you want to make a motion, you would say this portion, this is one for spring. Then if you want to make the one for fall, this is one for fall. So, Aaron?
A motion to approve the budget request to cancel developers, first one being 2,750 for the developers spring 24 hackathon from 2023 to 2024, special allocation contingent on getting the suggested fund budget out. And the second 2,750 for the developers for fall 2024.
There's two separate motions.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
that was one.
they're two separate.
Oh.
So just say one first.
One first.
Okay. And then it is,
A second that.
okay. So moved by Aaron, seconded by,
I heard somebody.
Huh?
I think.
who?
I think I heard somebody over here. No.
Oh, no. Seconded by Matsuko. Any objections?
Can I just ask about this problem? Just
Discussion. I thought you wanted.
No, I don't, I want to ask.
Oh, okay.
I just want to ask, like, the developer, does it have a clear structure of itself, like, is it a whole organization, a club, or do you have a structure?
It is a CIS department affiliated organization. We have, it's a student-run program, so we have a board of directors. Right now, it's just 2 people, and then we have a leadership committee of like around 7 people.
Oh, so it's an established, it's already.
Yes, it's an actual.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they've been operating since we got here, like fall 2022. They were the ones that held the Enza hacks 1 and then 2 and then.
So, I mean, up until now, it's been sort of a collection of clubs, but they've been working with the business, division and CIS department to make it better.
Are there any other questions or do we? So technically the motion was already, are there any objections to it? Okay.
All right, being none, then this motion passes. Can I get a motion for the second part?
I need to approve $1,750. No, $2,750 for the other developers for the fall 2024 hackathon and the 2024-2025 for jobs. I'm thinking on getting with the IT department.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Aaron. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this motion passes. Congratulations.
Moving on to the second business item. This is the 2024-25 internal election.
Hello guys, this is the final day of the internals. Give yourself a round of applause. Okay, so today we'll be electing the ES senators as well as the finance senators. So we'll first start with the by-program coordinator and then ES coordinator. And then we'll move on to the chair of finance committee with budget members. This is the estimated schedule. I think the positions are gonna take 30 minutes each. Except for budget, it's just gonna go on until the end. This is the same usual schedule. 1 minute 30 seconds for an individual statement. 10 minutes Q&A segment and 10 minutes private discussion. So election rules, the same things. Please refrain from any comments that are not related to the discussion. Do not use any inappropriate language. Please raise your hand to be called on. And no participant is obliged to speak on any issues or answer any questions. So let's just go ahead and start with the Environmental Sustainability Committee. With the bike program coordinator. So all three applicants, please head over to the stage and give yourself a round of applause, please. So you guys will go in alphabetical order. And there's going to be a- For bike program, we will start with Arya Mishra. Lianosh, like names your name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arya Mishra, and this is my third cohort in Dianza. I'm a computer science major, and I'm from Central India. So let me tell you about my background. So I was a big introvert in my high school, and then I enrolled in the summer program in my senior year of high school, which changed me, made me, open to talking to everyone and asking for help, asking for opportunities. And then I got I got selected as the career counseling head in my high school my senior grade in high school. I got selected as the career counseling head in my high school, and then it gave me a really good experience in leadership and communication. I also contributed in the local NGOs in my city, and from menstruation awareness drives, animal welfare drives, drives to help local vendors during the Indian festivals. And then I came to Dianza, and I look for opportunities in Bay areas, and I got a chance to contribute in UC Berkeley GLO Leadership Summit, where I also, okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Hello, Senator. My name is Dinesh Sabadija. I'm a physics and mathematics major. This is my third quarter at Pienza. From the beginning of this year, academic year, I had the honors to be an intern for the finance club at the DASG. I learned the core values that we follow here, and I would like to be involved further into this value and try to spread them as much as I can. I saw this position available and I want to learn more about the environmental sustainability initiatives that we support, and I would like to become more involved into managerial roles. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Minzo Kim from South Korea, and I'm currently running for the vice coordinator position. So I've been interning with the ES committee since the last quarter, and what I've learned by doing an intern is that DSG really works hard for the students. So I want to bring that, DSG works really hard for the students. We want the students have great memories and experiences and enjoy their time at school. So I want to bring the same positive energy to the bike program. So my main goal for the bike program is to make things easier for the students, such as reducing students' inconveniences and promote the environmental benefits of using a bike. And additionally, with my experiences as a co-president of the Korean American Association Club and the captain of the field hockey team, I can bring and apply these skills to lead the committee and communicate effectively with the students. Thank you.
Moving on to candidates, Q&A, the second is 10 minutes, so who wants to start first? Adrian?
How will you ensure that the bikes are going to be equitably distributed to the students? How will you ensure that the bikes will be equitably distributed to the students? Like, how will you make sure that the people who need them most get the bikes?
Well, so for that, so I reached out to Anish about the situation of the bike for the last quarter. So he said he was working with the EOPS, rent the bike to the students the low income students and athletic students. So I think it will distribute the bike pretty like equitably because we can help the students in need. Yeah, so I think we're working with the EPOS through the whole quarter, we can help the students who need a bike.
I would try to become more available in public, sort of because not every need is expressed in financially. There are so many more needs than just financially. I would try to become more public and be available to anyone who wants to talk to me and try to see if I can solve any problem they have.
I believe that having a proper Google form where we can, post on DASG's Instagram or like social media profile, and we can have specific questions that would help us know more about who needs the cycle the most, like the bikes the most. I think that would help us better for selecting the students who would get the bike. Yeah.
So before the spring quarter, the program was considered like dead or cold for a certain period of time of activity. So what are some suggestions that you have or ideas that you have that we can implement to try and keep the fight program as active for as long as we can?
So I believe that making a really good online presence and on-campus presence by reaching out to people through social media posts and also having our posters all over the campus and having workshops that would let the students know that there is a bike program that could help us. I think that would be more efficient.
I believe besides the social media, because there are so many companies that use bikes, but they may not use it anymore. They would have it as on the side or on the storage room or anyway. We could go ask around the companies
if they want to contribute to their community that they are living in. And I think that would help the ES general initiative to be more environmentally aware.
So other tendencies besides the social media, maybe we can provide a monthly bike condition checking form to the students who borrow the bikes, so that we can ensure that all bikes are in good shape, so that we can keep using it for the next year, next academic year also. And maybe we can update the website of the bike program. I want to update the program more like user friendly. Maybe you can put like students review from the students who borrow the bike. And maybe it will highlight the realistic benefits of using a bike in terms of like environmental and like health benefits. Yeah.
So currently the OCL, the charge of repair for any, any bikes that are provided. So, but obviously it's hard to motivate students to find out about repairing their own bike, but they can just go to the OCL and ask them to do it for them, right? So how are you going to take the stress off the OCL and motivate students to learn how to repair it themselves? We have repairing like resources on our website, but we haven't really seen like traction in terms of people being willing and motivated to learn how to repair their own bike. How do we do that?
I think, having workshops where, experts can come in and they can, teach students that, this is how you can take care of your bike, and if anything goes wrong, that's how you can fix it. I think that would be an issue.
I would believe that just as Paulo on campus, actually, I think being more present on campus would be most important. So by being more present, because by continuously become more active and take the pressure off the course. Yeah.
So maybe you can post something on the Instagram, like how to fix the bikes. And also when people register for the bike program, you can let them know how to fix the bike, like little format or like pamphlet, the bike fixing system. Yeah.
Out of all of the positions there are, what made you around the bike program?
So,
So I was a finance intern last year. Now I want to be more active in the college government. And I saw the position this year is available. And I want to become more involved in the environmental sustainability aspect of our college. They also like bikes.
so I live in Fremont and I travel every day here for 2 hours by transit, to get to college. So I know the need of, being independent and not having, that tension of transportation. While you're a student, you have a lot of work. I believe that the NSA's bike program has space for a lot of growth. And I believe that the skills that I have could be really valuable to the program.
So I've noticed and seen a lot of inconveniences for the transportation and bike program. So I asked about this problem to my friends and people. And one of my friends, he couldn't borrow the bike for the whole quarter. And one of my friends, because of the age limit, she couldn't even borrow it. And one of my friends, he borrowed it, but there are a lot of parts to get fixed. So he has to fix it before using the bike. So I don't want students to go through that problems again. So I want to solve that problem in this quarter. And I don't want that happen again in the next quarter. And so I want to improve the bike program. That's why we should define the discussion.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Discussion.
Reggie, for seconds. Look like second.
Can we please get a reminder of everyone's names? Mine is Vinso Kim.
My name is Dinesh Sabatanja.
My name is Arya Mishra.
Are there any other objections to end discussion? Seeing none, we end discussion. Next is time for public discussion. So all candidates, please leave the room while we deliver. What's the start? Adrian.
While I can't vouch for the other two candidates, I definitely can vouch for Minson.
Like, she works really hard in programs, she's been active in programs, and she's been like working hard in environmental sustainability, and I think she would do a great job as program coordinator.
Javier.
Yeah, I also like to mention, I also heard that she's mentioned that she was captain of field hockey team and that she's president of Korean Association. I mean, I'm not familiar with either of those groups, but if she really is leader of those two groups, I think that could.
Jason.
I'm in discussions.
Is there a second? Javier,
A second.
are there any objections? Seeing none, we in discussion. Moving on, we have the voting form right here. Please vote.
Last one.
Hold on, guys. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Matthew object, guys. There's an objection.
Like, does anyone have anything else to say about the other candidates?
Yeah, there is some there, let me guys.
My objection.
Yeah. So do we need to vote? or-
Can I rescind my?
Okay, sure.
Okay, can I, I'll just rescind that.
There is in it there.
So is it possible to like?
We said the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there any discussions now that they have retracted their motion to end the paper? No, I mean, like, Kate has the, like, retracted their motion to end discussion. So, what else do you guys want to discuss? We can do so.
There is no motion to discuss anymore, or there never was, what if
There never was.
Um,
I think.
Okay, so I'm gonna delete all the voting responses, and we're gonna start it over. But don't do it yet.
Okay. Okay, so I think all the candidates are great. I think the admission responses were the best, considering the sales experience within the environmental sustainability committee and the bike program. I think the position.
I'm putting here.
Yeah, and this, can you repeat that again?
Okay, I think all the candidates are great, and I think the admissions responses were the best, but Sarah provided some good ideas, like the student review section, the website for that. So considering her time in the environmental sustainability committee, and she's also super motivated to like work with the park program, like do like messaging me a lot. So considering those two things, I think Sarah would probably be the best fit to be the bike program according to.
Richard, I just had a question for like anyone else, other than Minnesota, is there anything else anyone wants to say about the other two candidates?
Thank you.
I thought Aria's responses to the questions, were quite good.
Ethan?
I thought they were kind of cute. Can you point out, one thing that you thought was good?
She did have more like ideas about collecting student information about equity and then using those to like kind of like determine where people want to target.
I agree on that front. I was in yes, the first quarter, I was at Atlanta, and that was already a discussion that we did more about that. What? About using equity forms, like to have certain information. I remember I was there during discussion when they were.
Yeah, we do we are using it for, like, that is part of it, where like students, I like, that's partly why I thought we could spend more for the service, because she mentioned using the OPS. Because that is one of, like, we have for our e-bikes, who gets priority, it's like DSPS, TEFAS, and UOPS students and Guardian Scholars specifically are the like groups that if they're in there, they get, it's like a point system. And they get more points for being in that group. So they're almost, if they're in any of those disadvantaged groups, they're more likely to be getting an e-bike straight away. So that is something that we do already have existing. However, it is good to know that the candidates are like on board with that already.
Finish. Actually, did not agree a little with her point. I think, Mateo was mentioning a pretty like new idea of the student review section of the website, and I think that could be a really great way to attract students to the bike program if they can vouch for how dependable it is and how responsive we are on campus. And I think Arya's response workshops are okay. They're decent, but I don't know if I can say for certain if that's the most effective way to like motivate people to come to the bike program and use the bike program, even if they really need it. I moved to end the meeting. You know, as a person that oversees the bike program for the office, and that will work most directly with this person and with our student assistants in the office that also help with the bike program. I will say there were two I preferred over one. I won't specify. The two, based on their answers and what was on their application that I preferred, I have not worked with before. The one I'm not as sure about, I have worked with before, because there I can give you that also. There's a motion to end discussion from Jason, right? Is there a second? Isaac? Second. Moved by Jason and seconded by Isaac. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, we end the debate. Here's the form. Please scan again. Thank you. Yes. So if you're passing your votes, please raise your hand.
Sorry, I just want to make this known. I think that's one of the candidates for budget analyst, but they can't be here in person.
Yeah, we were aware of that.
Yeah, we were aware of that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's allowed to run for candidate in the Zoom meeting. Did everyone, I think there were still a couple people to do voting? Was everyone finished? Everyone finished? Who hasn't finished? Raise your hand, please. Awesome. Someone call the candidate second. Thank you. Yeah, come on.
Okay, so I'm gonna read out the votes. She received 1 vote, Tianish received 3 votes. And then Dale received 27 votes, and there was 1 that abstained, so the unified program coordinator is Lisa.
Congratulations, Ms. Hale, for getting elected. Next up, we have the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator. So all the candidates, please have the speaker give them a remarks.
Oh, yeah, just a reminder to kind of review Asia's session from last week, all the bullet points over there. I kind of replied to it in the Discord chat, just so that everyone can kind of review it.
So we will start with Mariga and then Sri Harika. Whenever you. Anyway, it's fine.
Okay, I'll say the next one.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Mariga.
I can start now. Hi, everyone. My name is Derica, and I'm a first-year biology major at the answer. The reason I'm applying to be an environmental sustainability coordinator is because I spent a lot of my time volunteering at community gardens in high school, and also spent a good chunk of amount of my time at the museum, which had its own like botanical conservatory and botanical gardens. And there I spent a lot of my time like talking about the exhibits we have, teaching people about the plant collections we have, and also talking about the impact we have on the plants we have. Because like a lot of plants we had at the greenhouse were super rare, and we really wanted to teach people about like, being more environmentally aware and raise like, I guess like awareness about the impact they can have, and just like show them the plants we have, like, these plants are really cool, and like, let's be like more environmental friendly. And I think that and that's why I really want to, throughout my time spending like talking to gardeners and also just people at the museum and getting to look more about the plants and the environment and the effect we have. That's why I want to become the environmental sustainability coordinator, because I saw the impact people had on the environment, and I really want to preserve it because, it's just like, there's a lot of impact we can have, and like, I really want to preserve the nature we have right now. And that is why I'm really passionate about it. That's why I'm applying to the position. And hello, I'm Sri Harika, and this is my 3rd quarter at DASG, and I'm applying to be the environmental sustainability coordinator because I want to raise more awareness about the projects that are in DASG at the moment, and also about the environment in general. We all know we have to do a lot more to save the planet, but what exactly, or where do we exactly start? And I think that's that's a really good question, and a lot of people don't know, because there's a lot of good programs in DASG already, from the biodegradable utensils to the LEED certified buildings. And our campus is great, but most of our student body doesn't know much about it. And I think it's a great place to start from creating awareness talks and having events so we can talk about them and educating the student body about them. And I think it's a great place to start. Also, another project I want to do is maybe have like a lending library where we bring in different things that we're not using in our house, like maybe a laminating printer or hole puncher, things that we don't use in our house very often that someone else could use more often and more effectively. And I think that's like a great way to build a more sustainable community in general. Thank you.
Moving on to candidates Q&A, this is 10 minutes. So who wants to start first? Adrian.
So as the environmental sustainability coordinator, one of your biggest responsibilities is posting and like putting together Earth Week for students. What kind of ideas for like things that you would like to see during Earth Week do you have, and how would you make sure that you get student engagement?
Something I thought about for the events that I was thinking, was to talk to professors, maybe biology or environmental professors in their classes, and maybe coordinate some sort of incentive for their classroom, whether it be a project or some sort of, maybe extra credit, anything to incentivize, students to come. Thinking like curriculums and I'm talking about like the things we have on campus, I would also love to have like a waste collection program. I think there's an application out already, but we can talk about our waste collection program and advertise it through the week, like, hey, we have this kind of waste collection program that they can start in, and you guys can drop off your waste, like e-waste, the light bulbs, anything else that you can't go into, like, single stream waste, and they can come out, drop it off, and we can advertise it in the classrooms, but also just to like the community around the team, so people can know about the this collection program we have, and like can come and drop off their stuff, which would be really helpful in general.
Adrian.
So another one of your main responsibilities is managing the eco plan. Do you have any ideas for potential projects or any ideas on how to ensure that one, students know about eco fund, and two, that they'd be taking advantage of it and adding more sustainable projects to our students' campus?
I think we can host like a workshop about the eco fund, and say like, hey, we have this eco fund, these are the steps we can apply, like, start from the start, like, these are the steps, this is the application, this is what you need. And we can have it like at one of the villages or like anywhere really, and people can come by and learn about the eco fund. Because like, if you just put it out there and yeah, this is the eco fund, people wouldn't know how to apply, what do you need. So having like a workshop to introduce the eco fund, what you need, who you can contact, what are the people you can ask about more, like the questions and stuff, and just having like a Q&A session after would be really helpful to encourage people to actually apply.
I think having flyers around would help about just knowing about it, but maybe going into classrooms, talking about it, maybe going to places and physically talking about it might get people to know it more, even if it's not on social media or they're not on social media or they able to see it anywhere else. I think directly will be.
So I'm not really a yes person, and I'm not associated with yes, but during programs meeting, I always hear Adrian mention an issue where her wildflower projects often have like people stepping over like the areas where the wildflower is growing. Would you be able to enlighten us with some possible solutions to this problem?
When I was in elementary school, when they had like small gardens, we would put rocks around it and like it would paint it. I don't know if this is just like a little kid thing, but it prevents people to have like show like a physical boundary of where you should not be, and creating that sort of boundary.
I think we can like put more like appearance signs around it so people can actually see that this is a wildflower planting area instead of just like, oh, like there's some grass and stuff. And just like making sure like people know that this is a wildflower planting area. We can also like decorate it, add some cool flowers, and or how they have like those like garden like decoration things, so we can put those things inside around and like make sure that they know it's like a wildflower planting area. We could also like add like posters around it, like teaching about like, hey, this is why we have the wildflowers, they help our wildlife, they improve like the wildlife diversity, and they bring in like more competitors.
So about the Wildflowers project, would you be interested in continuing the project and applying for eco fund for reseeding like efforts, or are you just not interested in that?
The wildflower areas are really awesome because they bring in like more pollinators and helps our like environment in general. So I think like keeping it up and like continuing is really awesome. But we can also like we have the bio classes at the end of it. The teachers can use their wildflowers there as their like teaching place. Like they can show us these are the local California wildflowers, these are the pollinators. So they can just like bring students and like show the pollinators, the butterflies, the bees, the flowers. So I think it'd be just not just like a place for an environment, but also like a great learning experience. I have to agree with everything, you said. I think it's a great way to have biodiversity, also, have its own campus and allows people to learn about them.
So I wanted to ask both of you, since, ES has kind of had, not an issue of projects, like there's definitely stuff to do around campus related to ES. So, again, my question is, what like project or initiative related to ES would you want to see happen, or would you make happen on campus at?
I can start first, if you want to, or, I think I spent a lot of time working and managing the compost guys at the community gardens. And like, I think it was really cool to see like how they can like, compost the waste and like reuse it again, and it's really useful. So having some kind of like composting program, because we do have a community garden at Piazza. So we can use the waste created by the cafeteria and use it to compost and give it back to our community, and just like use it at the gardens. I feel like we could talk to the people and be, hey, do you guys need this kind of compost if you make this composting program? And we can also make our compost like available to the people at the community, because I feel like people will still like, love some free compost because it's really useful for their gardens, and having this like waste that is like, it's sustainable. You're not just throwing away like, the waste created at the cafeteria. So yeah.
Something I mentioned before was the lending library. I think that's a great way to create a sustainable community in general. I think it'd be very useful for a lot of students. And so I think I would continue and like work for that project.
Thank you.
How will you promote sustainability in DASG events and operations?
I think it's the materials that you use and the way it goes about. The end all gonna use is biodegradable appliances, but I don't really use missiles in the cafeteria, but I don't really know about if they use that for the events or not. That sort of thing could be like details. Trying to minimize waste, having bins and recycling around, so we don't have trash everywhere.
I think it's what you just said earlier, and also we can make sure like that our events are accessible, like, promote like people carpooling, or like make our events accessible by the public transit. And like, instead of having people driving a car, or like have also like Zoom meetings accessible so people can join online instead of having to drive here, to lessen the carbon footprint in general.
Before we continue, is there any motion to extend discussion? Again,
I'm going to extend discussion by like 3 minutes.
is there a second? Sonal?
I second.
Okay, any objections? Seeing no objections, the motion is passed. Right here.
So something that we did this year was we did a like workshop with BTA about their goals for the future for getting students interested in taking public transit. How would you promote taking public transit or taking sustainable methods of transportation?
I think we could inform people about the DASG cards offer, like the BTA cards. And we could also promote like carpooling. I'm not sure about that part yet, but we could be like, hey, like you guys could carpool, or like, you can have like a system like of people who are willing to carpool, and like, people can message them like, hey, can I carpool with you? So to lessen their carbon footprint in general, and just like talk about the BTA cards we have and like how to get them, make like a little video like, hey, this is how you get your BTA card. It's like super simple, easy, and to register and get it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, promoting the paper cards that are already there. And also creating like some sort of forms, some sort of way to contact each other who do need rides. Maybe that's something to work on.
Any other questions?
I'm with my discussion.
Okay, is there a second? Richie, a second. Moved by Adrian, second or Richie, any objections? Seeing no objection, the discussion has been ended. So the next is gonna be private discussions, so all candidates, please step forward. Thank you. So who wants to talk first? Adrian.
I have to say, I don't, at this point, I don't really have a preference between the two candidates. I'm pretty not sure on who would do the better job. I took notes on both of them. I will say, I like that, Dorita she actually has field experience, like doing environmental work. And she's like very clearly passionate about the environment. Her bio major can help her with just having general knowledge on how the earth works and that kind of thing. I really think that the fact that she does have field experience, like actually doing environmental work, is pretty good. Yeah, that's what I think. I like that she has field work experience. I did like though how Sri Harika said that she wanted to like go physically into classrooms to talk about the Eco Fund and to talk to professors more to coordinate incentives for our Earth Week event. I thought that was pretty good.
Javier.
I don't know Dariga that well, but I do know Sriharika. She's part of a music club and she has been very hardworking. She's also been coming to all of our events as well. Yeah, well, I do like what Adrian said about the biology experience that Dariga has. I do think that Sriharika also has some great potential as the ES coordinator. Just want to bring it up.
Eddie.
I think they're both great candidates. I couldn't differentiate between the two of them, but I could vouch for Sriharika. I'm 99% sure she went to my high school and I did a class with her. And I confirmed with Richie. And I remember that she was very good, she was a very hard worker. And she was one of the people that stood out in the class. Personally, I would again get the main portion of it.
Jenna.
I work with Veritas before to like coordinate an event on campus, like a women in STEM event. And she had like a lot of great ideas and she was like very helpful through the whole process, even though she joined kind of like we like added back last minute. So I can like definitely say that she's very nice to work with and she's like has great ideas as well. I also thought her answers were like pretty well rounded. Like she showed like past interest in ES, but also like ideas for how to improve the program or like, add on to it. I thought like Sriharika, like her answers were also really good. So I kind of felt like they were both amazing, but like I did think that like Dariga had a lot of like a good range of ideas maybe.
I thought Adrian, do you think you can send like some of the
I'll just,
about
the whole notes
maybe
here.
because I hadn't spread out.
I'll just put it in the, what part of the Discord do you have to put this?
It's probably
Is
good.
the center tab?
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, if it's like, you can put an ES chat, I guess.
Okay.
There's a way.
Yeah, that's the notes for both of them. Check the ES chat.
Chris.
Yeah, I think they were both really good candidates and I could both of them being amazing coordinators. I did want to mention that in the handbook, Dariga, I hope I'm saying that right, mentioned about a waste collection program on campus where students can drop off household hazardous waste such as batteries, light bulbs, and other chemicals, which I thought was really cool. And later on, she also mentions about the cafeteria and how we can work with them to not only promote environmental sustainability within our students and our professors and faculty, but also just to make De Anza College itself more sustainable. So I like that.
Adrian.
So building off of that, I think we're putting in the new ES codes that the environmental sustainability coordinator has to sit on the environmental sustainability action council. And that like recycling composting program is something that we've been working on. That's our like main project in there. So it is good to know that she's already interested in the composting and making that happen on campus and is willing to work hard to ensure that it's active, like, and effective. So that's a green flag for me.
Oh, yeah, just looking at the answers and it's like based on like what, when they were like talking as well. I think both of them are honestly equally qualified, but I do think that, I feel like Dariga, especially for the eco fund, and then also like the wildflowers had a little bit more like depth to the answer. So for example, for the wildflowers, she also mentioned like about like getting bio professors involved, which I think is like a great way to help like students be more involved with something on campus. And then they might also like know about the issues or whatever. So that's like, I think it was an interesting way to expand on it. And then I also think for the eco fund, the application guidance is like the main problem with the eco fund, besides like getting the word out. So I just like that she mentioned that, because like it's pretty hard to fill out. And I think that if she's already thinking about that, then maybe she'll be able to figure out ways to make it more simple.
I like, Dariga in the sense that she has a lot of affiliations on campus, and I think that for ES, since it's also a new program coming, or new committee coming in, I think it's important that, word gets around, and I think that it's a lot easier to have, a coordinator who is involved in a lot of different things to get the word around easier. Even, Sriharika mentioned about like mouth to mouth, like, or like physical talk about equal funding classrooms. I think that that's something that Daria can do pretty well, not just in classrooms, but also in clubs and other organizations.
Richie, can I move that this question? Is there a second, Javier?
A second.
Any objections? Moved by Richie, seconded by Javier, the discussion has ended. Okay, here's the form. Please scan the QR code and press it.
You can delete them.
Yeah. It's like, we don't want that sitting in there forever.
Evolution.
When I heard your about. Right, I don't know that, so like. I'm better. Yeah.
If you have voted, please raise your hands.
Like I was, that's how it's like, it's not people, like, like, quality. Like that, I didn't think. So that's why we should look at what.
Up there.
No, no, it's right.
Put your hand down.
I'm saying.
Who haven't voted, please raise your hand. You haven't. Yes, everyone is done. Okay. Can someone call the candidates back in? Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Oh, very. Okay, so, gonna read out the votes, so. Seven votes. Darika will be 23 votes and 2 as abstain, so the new finance coordinator is Darika.
Congratulations, then. Both of you. So we're going to move forward with the finance committee internal elections. We'll be electing 3 budget analysts, but we have all the candidates.
We almost tried.
What's online?
So before we begin, there is a candidate in the Zoom meeting. There's a candidate here. Is the candidate running for chair of finance available in the Zoom meeting? Okay. I guess there isn't. Okay, so all candidates will start with 1 minute 30 seconds of individual statements. So we'll go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Khaled, and then Rajiv, Sean, Supar, Van, Yamin Tang, Zachary, and then Zain Garwish. Right, so Khaled, please start first.
I think that's the same.
So yeah, Rajiv, you can start first.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start off by thanking you all for your time today. My name is Rajiv Dodiwala, and I'm a first-year computer engineering major. I'm very efficient with my time and prioritize my commitment to DASG finance. I've been an intern in this committee for the past 3 quarters and have scheduled my classes regularly.
Here, Sean.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean, and I would firstly like to extend my dearest gratitude to the DSG for being able to stand in front of the Senate. And let me tell you why. It gives me the stage and opportunity to share a core memory that I treasure. From a young age in the bustling streets of Jakarta, I learned the value of resourcefulness. I remember organizing games with local street kids using Monopoly money to create our own little economy. It wasn't just play. It was my first lesson in the power of equitable resource distribution, even if it was just fake money. Years later, when I launched a waste sustainability project in my local area, I was faced with the harsh reality of underfunding. This experience was not just a setback. It ignited a passion in me to ensure that good ideas that can actually change communities, don't falter for the lack of support. Following my values of wanting to be driving force in my community, I started at DANZA, where I've been part of the finance committee since the very first official finance committee meeting that occurred last fall. I am also part of the shared governance as an official DASG rep for the Academic Senate for the past 3 months. And I'm deeply honored to have been trusted to voice out student opinions regarding important matters that would affect students academically. These experiences have changed my belief that being a budget analyst is more than just a role. It's a responsibility to be a steward of resources to ensure that every initiative, no matter how small, gets heard. I hope to achieve this as a budget analyst, to ensure that our financial decisions are not just about giving away money, but about opening doors. Thank you.
Right, Suporn is running his candidacy via Zoom. So Suporn, whenever you're ready, please make a statement.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Suparn Postina. I'd like to thank you for your time. I apologize for not being able to be there, but yeah. So I'm interested in being the budget analyst because I essentially want to be in a position where I want to make change. And making change has been a big part of my life, especially in high school. I've done over 300 hours of community service, and I'm an Eagle Scout. And so I do a lot of work with communities and ensuring that stuff gets done. And essentially, in terms of being a budget analyst, one of the big things is being able to manage finances. And I've done so through my Eagle project, where I was building a shelf and activity center for like a local preschool. And I had to allocate resources and allocate the budget, essentially like raise all the money and complete the build. And I was in charge of planning and executing everything. And so aside from that, my other experience is being part of the personal finance club in high school. And through that, I think I was able to get like a lot of familiarity with financial terms and being able to be more economically minded in general. I am a computer science major, but I'm considering switching to data science, and I currently work as a lead machine learning developer for
Next up, Ben.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben of majoring in business administration. So before coming here, I have experience in coordinating and helping organizing event to generate revenue for my high school and my university in Vietnam. So I think I can use this experience to increase our revenue. And second thing, I have been an intern for finance committee for 6 months. That means I have been participated in budget deliberations from interviewing budgeters to the Board of Justice presentation last Monday. So I have experience, I know information and procedure, so I can use that to help finance and DASG in the next year. And I also realized that communication can help us make more informed and effective decisions. So as an active, open and communicative person, I can be a bridge between finance and programs on campus and students to collect input and information, help us make decision or in budget deliberation. And I also can be connection between finance and other senators and other committees. So I can help you guys understand about the budget deliberation and know how we vote for how we allocate our budget, so we can cooperatively facilitate events and activities that benefit our students. Thank you.
Next up is Emita, if you're ready.
Greetings, everyone. I am Yan Ming, and I've been an finance intern for 3 quarters now. My experience as a finance intern includes participating in both the Senate and committee budget deliberations. I've also am proud to have made and partially presented the budget presentations that the Finance Committee made in front of the Board of Trustees. I'm also involved with the flea market, which I kept myself busy with at the same time. including the flea market food truck reels and research and getting in contact with manufacturers for promotional items. Yeah, I'm also quite confident in my knowledge of both Fund 41 and Fund 46. And I personally even know some of the programs that we fund through the Fund 41. In fact, I personally know the head chief editor of Laval's and the head of the UPratt Museum of Art, who is Diane. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Next up is Zachary.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zachary, and I'm a current finance intern. Instead of talking too much about myself, let me tell you guys why I want to be a budget analyst. Being an international student, studying the US for the first time has been a huge culture shock. When I joined the finance committee back in fall, I was shocked to discover that we, college students, were given the complete autonomy to allocate a whopping $1 million worth of funds. Subsequently, I had the opportunity to participate in the budget interviews, which is a really important process because this is where we get to understand and learn more about programs that we fund. And this was the moment when I realized how important good budget analysts are. Because if I were a program coordinator, I'll be terrified. I'll be terrified because the crucial funding that I need for my program lies completely in the hands of the budget analyst in front of me. And this is why I want to be a budget analyst. I want to be someone who the programs can rely on, someone who can take their issues to heart and fight for them during the budget deliberation meetings. These programs deserve to be taken seriously, and I want to be someone who can represent their needs in the meetings and hopefully get the funding that they deserve. And through my efforts, I hope that both current and future students alike would be able to benefit from the amazing programs that we have here on campus. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zane, as you guys already know, and I'm running for budget analyst for DASG. Some qualifications that I have is that I was my high school senior class secretary treasurer. What that consists of is I managed the budget very closely, and I allocated money to several different events for that senior class. And of course, sometimes we didn't actually have enough funds for those events, so I would plan fundraisers and host fundraisers to make sure we got our money up for those events. One specific event that I did was the end of the year carnival. I had a fundraiser for that. And me and my fellow crew helped raise money and did a lot of budget analysis to see if we have enough money for that event and also another event coming on forward. Also, I just finished coaching 2 diving high school diving teams, and what that consists of was me displaying my leadership skills because I had to manage my team very closely and make sure they weren't doing anything crazy, as well as my time management skills because I had to balance my 2 practices as well as my extracurriculars and my classes. And communication. Communication is very important because I had to communicate with my students saying what kind of improvements they need to do, as well as coaches and other teams to make sure the meet times and practice times are all in line. And so time management is very important, as well as communications for budget deliberations, because you need to communicate very well to make sure the budgets are being allocated correctly to different events, clubs, and so on and so forth. And thank you so much for your time.
Before we move on to Q&A, we would like to give Rajiv one more candidate statement for 1 minute 20 seconds. So whenever you're free, just feel free.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for my first attempt. My name is Rajiv, and I'm very efficient with my time and prioritize my commitment to DASG Finance. I've been an intern on this committee for 3 quarters, and I've scheduled my classes around as well. I've enjoyed the work I've done. I've helped make the finance video for other finance interns. I've been part of the budget deliberation process, which took many hours, and I've even presented at the annual Dianza. Through these experiences, I've learned a lot from my senators, and I believe that my hard work and my experiences make me very qualified for this position. Thank you.
So moving on to the
Q&A session, 10 minutes. So for the candidate on Zoom, if you would like to answer the question, just raise your hand and I will call you up. Thank you. So who wants to start first?
Hello, everyone. What experience do you have in DeAnza that will help you succeed as a budget analyst?
Some experience that I had was going to many Senate meetings for the Finance Committee, including like budget deliberations and just other meetings having to do with allocation of money. And so getting that insight of all of that really helped me understand what's going on in DeAnza and with all the money as well. And so I think that will help me better for next year, manage budgets and allocate money where they need to be allocated.
Most of my experience in DeAnza lie within helping out with student government, not just in the finance committee, but helped out in the flea market. I've even helped out during Earth Week with Adrian there. So, and yeah, and I believe these make me appreciate all committees and their roles inside our government. And I would like to, as budget analyst, help them as much as possible.
For me, I think relevant experience that I could bring as a budget analyst would be my participation in the REP Shared Governance Committee. Something that I discovered in that committee is that they essentially do the same thing as us. They are allocating and planning programs. But it's just that the scale of what they do is on a much larger scale, more money. But I do think that the skills and knowledge that I gained from that committee is very relevant when I can bring it to our finance committee, from the way they think, from the way they discuss and how they settle disputes. I think those are all very valuable experiences that can definitely help our finance.
For me, my experience is the present all the committee as well as the finance meeting. So I can learn from all the committees, for example, like program committee. I can learn from them how to lead all those interns, and I can learn from it and apply it to our committee to help our interns. And also, I have been active in events like in Earthquake and also mini field market, so I understand how programs benefit students, and my goal is also be more active in participating in such programs to understand how we can collect input from those programs to make decisions and allocate money for them more effectively.
As I previously mentioned, right, I'm part of the academic senate at DeAnza, as the shared governance. And so I know the insights in terms of the conversations that I'm talking about. And especially every month, usually there's a senate meeting, the district senate meeting in regards to teachers from Foothill and DeAnza coming together. And I'm present there. So I know the insights of that meeting. So I will be able to apply the things that I learned there into being a budget analyst position. I'm also the president of a FinTech club, which stands for Financial Technologies here at DeAnza. So I believe the technical skill that I have is sufficient for me to be a budget analyst. Thank you.
Supar, please answer.
Okay, so I am the co-founder of the Data Science Club, and I am currently a secretary for the chess club at DeAnza. And I think being part of those leadership positions helped me understand a lot about what goes on in helping a club run. And I think one of my strengths there is I've been communicating really well with everyone, and I try to always make sure I respond to things and be on top of things and always attend meetings. So I think that's one of my strengths for sure.
As I mentioned before, I've been part of budget deliberations and I've helped make the finance review for other finance interns. I'm also a teacher's assistant for a CIS class where I help around 40 students and delegate tasks among them. And most importantly, I've interviewed a few programs for the finance committee, and I realized how important the work that we do is.
Jason.
Obviously, like one of the biggest, if not the biggest project that the finance committee does is the budget deliberations. So is there anything you would do to either improve / streamline the process, or would you maybe change it completely? Like, what would you do to make that whole process better?
For me, I think one thing that I observed that we could improve in the budget deliberation process actually lies in the budget interviews. From my observation, a lot of times when we conduct these interviews, it's more of we're doing it for the sake of doing it. So there's a lack of a sense of ownership to the programs that we interview. And I think this is really important because when we actually go into those budget deliberation meetings, we are in a way representing these programs. Since we are the ones who interview them, we know them the most and we know their needs. And when a question comes up in the budget deliberation meetings, they would look to the interviewers of that program to answer those questions and help with our decision making. So I think a mindset change could be improved to have more ownership to the programs that we interview. Thanks.
I have a question for all senators. So how many of you know about the budget deliberation stipulation or something rule? Anything about budget deliberation? So it seems that there's still some senators don't know about it. So this may be the weaknesses of the budget deliberation because we make the decision on behalf of the student community, and it has to go through Senate deliberation too. And some of you, if you are not aware of this, so you may not know how we can allocate our budget more effectively. So this one, I want to like make informational sections or something to help you guys understand more about the stipulation. And when this comes to Senate deliberation, we can cooperatively deliberate and allocate our budget. And second, I think we lack of input from in-person interaction. So for example, when it comes to the finance deliberation, most of the information we collect from the application and also from our advisors, but it seems that not many of us like participate in the programs or events to be aware of its effectiveness and student engagement and collect input to use that to make more efficient decisions. And I think I will spend time to attend the meeting and collect input for the whole process, and then also make the strategy for intern to participate in with me.
Before we continue, is there any motion to extend discussion? Adi? And this, moved by Adi, seconded by Kate. Are there any objections? Seeing no objection, the discussion is extended by 10 more minutes. Can you make it?
Yeah, something I noticed while attending both the budget deliberations is the lack of information on some of the programs. It was clear that the interviews were definitely not enough to make a fully informed decision on those programs and what to budget to them. Thus, I not only suggest having a better interview process by putting them up there earlier. And I also want to send maybe a representative to each of the programs and maybe have them experience an event hosted by that program. We could perhaps utilize even our interns, give them more tasks by sending, like, for example, one intern undercover to each program and, get them to experience it in full and come back to us during budget deliberations and have much to tell. Yeah, thank you.
Can we repeat the question?
Well, Dennis? We'll be continuing the Q&A, so.
Can we repeat the question?
Oh, so what would you do to maybe improve the full budget presentation process?
So one thing that I think is really important is understanding how the process works. And so what that will do, it'll create a lot of efficiency during the process as well. So if we have people who understand what's happening, they can be more efficient at what they're doing, as well as delegate a lot more tasks to interns and other senators to make sure the tasks are getting done at a reasonable time. One thing that I think is very important is making sure that we aren't like pushing back things. Because I feel like when I was going to senator meetings and stuff, in the finance committee, a lot of things would end up getting pushed back a lot. And so one thing that will definitely improve the process and will make it faster and more efficient is just like try to minimize how much we push things back by being more like, you know, productive, more efficient, more delegating of tasks. And so I think efficiency is the most important thing when it comes to making the budget deliberation process better in a whole.
Supan raised his hand. Would you like to answer?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I was thinking about was creating department-specific budget reports. So you can highlight like significant changes or like areas requiring attention, and you could create like interactive dashboards to present this data interactively and like allow all the stakeholders to see all these changes that could be made and how that would affect the department's overall budget. And I think being able to document all that in like one specific spot is going to make the whole process like a lot more efficient, because you can easily see you know, this much money could be saved if we do this, and you know, this is the impact of making this change to the budget. And you can extend that by doing ROI analysis, for example. So you could like analyze the cost of more like academic programs like nursing, for example, or engineering, and doing like per student costs and putting all that on like a dashboard that anyone can see. And I think that would be a really good way to be more equitable and have a more effective budget analyst position role.
When I see something good being done, I'm not afraid to give my absolute applause and credit to it. I think the current DASG finance has done a fantastic job in executing the budget deliberations. However, I have a humbling advice to give, and I think that advice would be to improve the interview process, especially in terms of thoroughness. I think asking more relatable and technical questions to the programs funded would be necessary. A question, for example, would be, why didn't you use the full amount last year? Thank you.
Yeah, Reggie.
The problem I've noticed with the budget deliberations is the form that the programs have to fill out. The form that these programs fill out are very complex and have certain sections that have guidelines in between them. And these programs don't know how much money and what they can ask between these guidelines. So a video showing these programs what to ask and how much to ask is something I will enforce everybody.
Well, as you know, budget deliberations get really messy, and when allocating funds, we often come across the issue of two well-deserving programs asking for money. How do you go around with the compromise, and what would you take into consideration to allocate the budget?
I think when we talk about fair funding for programs, for me, it's difficult to define what exactly is fair. So the way I see it is that what we're trying to achieve is not equal funding, but equitable funding for equal opportunities for these programs to impact their students. So when we come across a situation when we cannot decide how much to allocate, I think this is where we have to come together and objectively determine the extent of the program's reach, its membership, its potential. And this is where we assess how we can make sure each program gets funding so that they have equal opportunities to help their students. So in this way, I think there's no one program that has a less impact on students compared to another program. I believe that all programs should have an equal opportunity to impact the students that they want to reach out to.
So can you repeat the question?
How do we go around with the compromise of allocating the budget to two well-deserving programs? And what do we take into consideration to like give them money?
One thing that I will take into consideration is how active those programs are. I think that some clubs and programs on campus, are out there, but don't do as much as maybe we'd want them to do. And if they ask for a large sum of money, then that should be a deciding factor whether or not they get it. Another thing that I think is very important is, what the people think on campus. I feel like the student population is the most important thing. And so I think that, we should talk to the senators and all the other committees to whether or not, like, it's a discussion between everybody instead of just, one person deciding. Because obviously, like, one of them said that every single program has its own benefit to somebody else, and not one is more beneficial than the other. And so just making sure that they have an equal and fair shot of getting what they desire, and try not to like completely take out another committee or program.
Right, well, I would consider for between the two programs, how much of an impact does each student in those two programs make in that program? Because the first and foremost goal of our programs are to empower our students to make an impact. And I would take that first into consideration. Then I would look and see how much do they need that money. See, to what extent do they need that money? Some programs already have accounts and resources from somewhere else. For example, our sports program has Plan B funds. Thus, I would take that into consideration and see which one needs it more and which one would help our students create an impact. Yeah.
So besides collecting the input from students in person, so for example, I will go to some of the programs and do quick survey for students to give feedback about their experience with the program and how the programs benefit them. And then I will make kind of a strategy in general, so I can give out to our interns and to do it and experiment more. And also I want to consider the potential role in the future of them, because for some program, maybe they just start in the few years. So their student engagement or something will not too like impressive like the other. So I will consider the need, the current need and the future need of students. So take that into consideration and we allocate for them the necessary fund so they can grow and maybe benefit more students.
Before we continue, is there any motions to extend discussion? Eric?
Motion extended.
By how many? 10 minutes. Is there a second? Matthew?
I second.
Moved by Aaron, seconded by Matthew. Are there any objections? Javier?
Object.
Okay.
Is there another time that everyone would agree?
5 minutes?
Is that okay with everyone?
6 minutes. Guy 7, I want to ask a question.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like so many candidates here. We spend longer on few candidates.
Because I also have a question after this.
Javier. Do you still object? Okay.
So we're both.
Sure, it's extended by 10 minutes. You can continue. I definitely think communication is the key to this. I think in being able to really understand what the different programs does is necessary for us to be able to decide how much funds we are allocating to each program. In this case, if we were presented with that situation, I think we actually have to ask each programs coordinator how much funds they need and what is needed for. So I think communication is the key to this problem. Thank you.
If there were two equally deserving programs, the first thing I'd look at is their dependency on DASG funds. Because if one of the programs couldn't function without DASG funds, then you give the money to them first. And to do this, you can look at their revenue sheet, and where they get their money from, which is given to us before the budget delivers.
So Warren, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I think one thing that one way you can implement in like talking about individual academic programs, you could do something similar to how machine learning models are used in the stock market to predict stock market trends. What if we forecasted the enrollment and job market demand of these individual programs and firms, and then incorporate that data to guide the resource allocation? You can also do something like MCDA, which is multi-criteria decision analysis. And you could do that to allocate the resources across the departments. And you can weigh factors like graduation rates, satisfaction. You can do a survey to figure out, which students are interested in what. And you can do that to provide these like data-driven funding recommendations rather than just kind of just guessing.
Oh, Enrico. Okay. Since I know most of you personally, you've been working with me for the past few quarters. I know every single one of you are fit to be a budget analyst. And the only way I can think of that could differentiate each and one of you is not to look by your role as a finance senator, but look at it as a whole and see your role as a senator. Now, my question to you is, how do you think you can fit in your role as a senator, and what can you bring to the discussion in like Senate meetings?
One thing that is very important would have to be communication. I think that communication is very, very important. But if you repeat the question, like what was the end part of the question? Sorry.
Like how do you think you can fit in here in Senate, and how do you think you can bring up like student problems? How do you represent students here in the university?
Yes, a voice is very important. I think that every voice should be heard. And also there's one thing, I don't know too much about it, but it is Measure G. There is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a medical building that is going to be in place where the flea market is. And if I'm not mistaken, that the flea market is very, very, very important when it comes to our funds for the DASG government. And so what I think that is very important, and I can try and advocate for as much as I can, is making sure that the flea market is going to provide as much vendors and all that as it is now, and making sure we can find a place if the medical building is 100% for sure going to come. Try to find a new place for it and try to like figure out that problem, because I think that is very important to deal with.
So for me, I think as a senators, I will like go to each program meetings to consider their financial needs, because so for example, like program meeting, they have cannibal or environmental sustainability. So each program meetings we will collect each information input and also use that for budget deliberation. And I also will contact with all the senators about budget deliberation. So I will collect how they think about the current process and any recommendation or feedback so I can improve it and help finance make decision that is more aligned with the whole DASG. And also I will be a mentor for my interns, so interns will be the future resource for the DASG. So I want to make sure that my intern receive necessary information and resources to become the future senator that can help make more effective decisions on the behalf of the DASG.
For me, right now, I think I'm in a unique position to represent the needs and wants of the students through my role as a representative. I think that is a good chance for me to represent students and the Senate in a shared governance level. And on the DASG and the student body level, I think me as a person, I do value connections and making friends, and I have done that pretty extensively so far in Dianza. So I think I have a good exposure to the opinions and the ideas of the student body. And I think having good knowledge of the ideas of the student body make me a good channel to bring those ideas to DASG and shared governance.
Supar, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, so I also think effective communication is an important skill to have. And part of that is also negotiating with conflicts and disagreements that people might have. And I think one of my skills is being able to understand both sides of the situation. Even if I might be thinking one side is better, I still make an effort to make sure I understand the whole overall situation before I make a decision. And I always make sure that the decision I make is in consensus. Like I'm not just overruling other people. And I think part of that is using infographics and visual aids to kind of aid what I'm trying to say, or essentially making sure I'm always prepared for meetings and making sure I always have a strong idea of why I want to make a certain decision rather than just putting something out there. I think I always come prepared and I always make sure I communicate why I'm trying to do something.
As a senator, I am always ready to sit at the Senate meetings and propose ideas and advocate for the idea of efficiency. I am an economics major after all. And I've already participated in many of other committee events such as Earth Week, the flea market, the mini flea market, the flea market. And I want to continue doing that, not just for the field hours as a senator, but because I want to help out in the goals of those events as well. I also want to help represent DASG as a senator in front of the Board of Trustees. As already said, Measure G there is a thing called Measure G, where the medical building will heavily disrupt the flea market. And I want to find a solution to this problem, either by getting the Board of Trustees to recognize that this plan might be not so good after all, or that the opportunity cost would be too high, or that DASG will demand compensation from them for disrupting our flea market. Yeah, thank you.
I definitely think that being a driving force in our community is very important. And especially with being a senator, it's not just a role of being a budget analyst. I think you have to be overall, you have to have good policies and you have to actually understand how everything works. And you're in good communication with the people in your committee and other committees. So I do believe that I think those qualities are necessary in order for you to become a good senator. Thank you.
being the voice of other students is very important. And I think I can bring that to the table because I'm a teacher assistant, we meet close to 40 to 50 people every single quarter. I'm also an active participant in the soccer club where I meet 10 to 15 new people every single week. And I believe that I actually connect with these people and I can bring their opinions to the table for every something.
Before we continue, is there any motion to extend the Q&A session? Aaron?
Oh, a motion to end discussion.
Okay, is that second, Nico?
The one person, oh, one person's left.
Yeah, 1%.
Is that, is one going on?
No, I mean, I think Brandon had one more.
Yeah, Brandon,
Oh, minus one.
would you like to retract your motion?
No.
So is that
Oh,
second?
actually, I don't.
Okay, Nico?
Second.
Okay, moved by Aaron, second by Nico, are there objections?
I object.
So-
I retract it.
So is there any motion to extend discussion?
Move to extend discussion by 10 minutes and 32 seconds.
Aaron?
A motion to extend that 5 minutes. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
10 minutes.
Oh, 7. That's it, just 7 minutes.
So Richie?
My second year method, so.
So moved by Aaron, seconded by Richie, are there any objections for the 7 minutes extension? Okay, good. Seeing none, the discussion has been extended by 7 minutes. So yeah, ask your question.
All right.
Wait, is there a motion?
So if you didn't know, we currently have an additional source of funds for the next few years, but it's expected to run out. How would you prepare and optimize DHQ's budget to suffice for this inevitable loss of funds?
Yes, I think this one is just the bonus, so before this one, we already have the same amount of fund, so we can maintain that level of allocating and reduce the time using that fund, so we will have more, like, it will reduce in less time and we will have more time to make decision. And also, as I told you, before, I help organize event that help generate income for my high school. So particularly like the music concert and the talent show, talent show, but it's the main source of student income from my high school. So I'm working with a program right now to find some way to incorporate that event to our college, and we can make money from sponsor and sell ticket, or also ask for some contract or something like that to collect more fund and like you say, replace the fund, the hub fund. Yes.
For me, firstly, I think that any revenue generating initiatives is a constant thought in our minds. So any extra measures to prepare for our extra funds running out would be kind of would be a secondary consideration, because we will constantly be thinking of ways to generate funds. And the second thing that I would think about is these are extra funds given to us to use. So these funds are going to run out, and we should make use of these funds as best as we can to improve or give some extra opportunities to students in the years that we have the money. But I think ultimately we have to be realistic and understand that these funds will run out, and we just need to be prepared and communicate to the programs that this would be the case in the future.
Yeah. So I actually know the funds you're talking about. I believe it's the purpose. All right. So those, yeah, I would refrain from using those purpose funds for continuing expenses. Rather, I would try to focus them on maybe one-time or temporary expenses, such as perhaps using it to fund homecoming, or yeah, or perhaps using it to fund an event like the spring carnival. That sort of things will make the HERFA's fund last longer and make us less dependent on it. Yeah, thank you.
For in case those funds do run out, because if you could repeat the question is what happens if when the fund runs out, correct?
How would you prepare and optimize the issues budget, suffice for this significant loss of funds?
I would definitely want to make sure that whatever money we're putting in from that fund is being used efficiently and effectively. And if it's something that we don't want to just throw money at that is not going to be very beneficial to the students on campus. For instance, I think there was a motion that passed for a carnival to happen. I think that's a very, very good use of the funds because I think it'll draw a lot of students to campus. It will make a lot of people have new friends, new connections, all of that. That's a really good use of it. And in case those funds do run out and we end up burning through it, I think we should find innovative ways to fundraise, finding new ways such as the flea market to try and gain more revenue for us to do more activities such as the carnival and other fun activities.
Super, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, so I could think of three things. So I'm currently working, I've currently started like a company or like a startup. And what we do to manage our budget is we have something called an emergency reserve strategy, first of all, which is kind of like an emergency reserve fund that enables us to meet the minimum levels required to meet the minimum revenue required to keep the business going. And we also have something called a prioritization framework, which is kind of like priority zero is just like essential programs that we kind of have to have like running at all times. And then priority one will be like a little bit less essential stuff and so on. You could just put everything into a certain amount of priority. And the third thing I could think of is looking into alternative funding sources. You could think of external grants or sponsorships or partnerships that would also align what we're trying to get at. And you could think of those as ways to cover any missing funds that would be created.
So to answer this question, I'll give a bit of background. This summer, I've been recently accepted to intern at a venture capitalist firm in Southeast Asia that funds seed to growth startups based in Southeast Asia. And it's essentially a budget analyst job. And one of the things that they implemented that I've researched about is called growth simulations, which is basically where we make simulations of the budget to know when exactly the budget will run out and the numbers necessary to continue the budgets necessary. That's number one. The number two thing is I think we should actually, as everyone else has already mentioned, I think the use of finding more funds is actually necessary. I think that's a very important aspect of this question. And for number three, I think optimization is also important in the sense that we should actually allocate the necessary amounts, the minimal amounts, but still keep the programs funding and running. Thank you.
As our budget declines, I think our first priority is to be conservative with our funds and find fund the necessary monies of programs. Then find new sources of revenue for the DASG budget, and also bring more awareness to the $10 fee that we have for DASG.
Motion to end discussion. David? Chris, second. Moved by Caitlin, seconded by Chris. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion has passed and the Q&A session.
Could everyone just say their names once more? So,
I'm Zane Darwish.
I'm Ben.
Reggie.
I'm Yan Ming.
Zachary.
sure.
And the person in Zoom meeting is Supwan.
Super, yeah.
So now that the Q&A session is ended, we'll move on to private discussion. So all candidates, please step out of the room and we'll call you back in soon.
Do we take Sukar out of the meeting?
Oh, yeah, we should. Yeah, don't. Right now. Whoever can, if you put them in the waiting.
What if we just start?
Okay, who wants to start first? Take it.
I think there are three candidates that stood out to me. I think Zach and Van, just from start to finish, just stood out. And then in the middle, who I thought really stood out was Rajiv. Because, for example, from my question he answered, his answer, well, the others seem to answer like, oh, how do we streamline it for the DASG side? Rajiv has an answer that improves it from the program side. And I feel like even as a senator, it's very nice to have someone that just takes from the other side first. Like they'll just, they take from the other side. Yeah.
I spoke a little bit with Lisa, I told you about the first quiz. So I'm just kind of relaying this information. He said that Zach was like really great, league of his own. He said that Van is like a close second, certainly a front runner. And then he said for his third, for him personally, it would be a toss up between Sean and Yan.
Javier?
Yeah, obviously, like, I'd like to say, I apologize for the objection on the extending discussion earlier. It was also because like I sort of had my mind set up by that point already. I agree, based on what he said about Izat's opinion. I do think that it should be Zach and Van, and I have seen Sean be very active in academic senate as well. Like Lydia, I'm pretty sure you can talk to that as well as Ian. But yeah, I think those are my pick for those three.
Aaron.
Like I echo what Jason said, just for the third person in pick, Rajiv. I've worked with Rajiv, and also all of Rajiv's answers, even though he was like very quiet, they were really straight to the point, and they were actually valuable, valuable stuff. Whereas what everyone else said, everyone else, with one or two sometimes different, but like everyone else said was like fluff and not implementable. But what Rajiv did is like stuff that we have implemented and kind of will continue implementing. So it's very radical stuff there.
I would like to second that because his answers really showed that he knew what he was talking about and he knew how the finance committee worked. I would also like to say that I've been like working with these people since like fall quarter. They've been like super good. They've been super easy to work with. And they have put a lot of effort into the finance committee and they're all equally deserving candidates. But like everyone mentioned, Zach stands out. He has been extremely good and his answers were also really nice. And he helped out with the budget presentation a lot. Wan is also another really good candidate. And Yan Ming, especially Yan Ming, because like, yeah, I'm just saying Yan Ming has like a really good knowledge of the finance committee and like all the codes, all the funds, everything. And he was a member in like budget deliberations and he actively participated in everything. So, yeah.
I do want to add to that, the budget deliberations is a really long, tedious process, and the interns were not required to be there. So any intern that was there really did want to be there and engage with that stuff. Yanming was there. He, during a finance meeting, consistently contributes like valuable insight and different questions towards the meeting. So I feel he is, although his responsibility is a little short, a very qualified candidate for the position. And Rajiv as well. Rajiv puts in a lot of legwork as an intern.
Adriel. So while we pretty much established earlier, like through the questions process, that all of these candidates are qualified, I really appreciated Dan Ming because he is like, he's willing to be a team player, like as a person on the senator. He like not only is well qualified to do well in finance, but he's willing to help out in other committees. Like personally, he helped out quite a bit on like multiple days every week, even though he's not an ES like intern, and that stood out to me. And the fact that he helps in like flea market as well, it's just awesome. It's good to know that if we do vote him into the Senate, he's willing to work for Senate as a whole, not just finance. He's not only like well qualified for finance, but he's qualified to be a senator. So that's why he stood out to me.
I'd like to talk more about Sean. And So what you guys know about finance is that we have like a buddy system here. Where each senators have their own buddies that we delegate tasks to. And we delegated Sean under Lydia. And this is an honest mistake by me and Lisa. During our budget deliberation where we tried to interview people. We gave nothing to Lydia and her interns because we don't want Lydia to overwork, and that in turn made all of Lydia's interns not have work. But out of everyone that I was under Lydia, Sean was the only one that reached out to me and Lydia, I think, like if I'm not wrong, about why am I not getting any work done, why am I not getting anything? I feel like I should do more, I can do more. Is there anything else I can do? And he made up for that, the not being there in the budget deliberation, the interviews, who's there in the meeting, by taking part in every single committee project, even though you're only, like, you only have to do one, because you're under one senator. He participated in all 3 projects and did substantial amount of work there.
I just want to say that, well, they're all like in different finance, so they've been to, basically like the budget deliberations, and it's like not just like one of them, it's most of them that was up there. So outside of that, I just want to say that the people who have the most initiative to like work on the other project in finance is Zach, Van, and probably Sean, because even though, as Nico mentioned, like, he wasn't really given anything to do, but he would always ask for things, and like, whenever, like, new projects came up, he would always be, like, willing to, like, volunteer and take charge of that.
I want to talk about the 3 candidates. I just want to pound Adrian's statement about how we should also consider that they're going to be senators as well. And in that case, I do believe that Yan Ming and Van showed very good qualities, not only in their answers, but also just the way that they conduct themselves as interns just on a day-to-day basis. And then in terms of Sean, like, obviously I don't know him, and I think that the idea of taking initiative is really good. But if I'm just purely looking objectively at the interview, I took notes on all the candidates, and for all of Sean's answers, they were like in the latter half, the former half, they were good. The latter half, it kind of just devolved into a lot of fluff. The only big thing I got for the 2 different programs competing for a budget, the question proposed by Aditya was communication between him and the programs. If I'm mistaken, you can all correct me. For senator wise, he just spoke of qualities that you can bring, and he didn't specify which qualities other than leadership. And then for loss of funds, I just couldn't get a like solid answer. Yeah.
Like for flea market, I think this speaking of that a little bit, like he definitely shows a lot of initiative, like he volunteers for work a lot, and he always asks a lot of questions and brings ideas. Like he's not really afraid to like speak his mind and like contribute to any discussion. And I have definitely seen that he has a lot of passion for like the finance committee and like putting a lot of effort into it. And then also Van, he's not like one of our interns with flea market, but despite that, he's asked me, like, he's practically asking about flea market things or trying to learn more about, like, for example, the medical center, or like, how can he help us and stuff like that. So I feel like he also asks a lot of questions, like even programs committees, like committee meetings, he comes sometimes and he's asked questions. So I feel like, I don't know, I've just seen a lot of initiative and contributions from both of them.
I'll speak to Yan Ming and Sean. So at least for Yan Ming, the 2 things I know that motivates him is free food and budget deliberations. This guy is a different beast. He finds fun in budget deliberations. There's like a fire in his eyes when he talks to me about it. But yeah, so I've been working with him, and like Dana kind of said, he's like looking for that work, and he's kind of looking to be involved. And so I think, and not just like in the flea market, right? Or at least I think I remember from our interview with him when he used to be part of the finance committee. So that's when they asked that he wanted to be part of finance or flea market. He's like, can I just do both? And I mean, that's not an answer that, you know, we commonly get. For Sean, I think from what I've seen, it's kind of work ethic, and I can really appreciate that because at least for a lot of us senators, we can speak to a lot of times it's us reaching out to our interns, where it's been, at least in my case with Sean, he's been the one that reached out first. And in my time at the end, it's very rare for me to see anyone reach out to me first. I want to say.
Or,
That's all, our time is like gone.
oh, is there a motion to? Reggie,
Except for 5 minutes.
Kate. Moved by Reggie, seconded by Kate to example 5 minutes, other new topic, seeing none motion. Alright.
Okay, I can second Ian with Young Min talking about passionately for finance. Because this guy is like really chill, he doesn't talk very much, but when we talk about finance, he starts talking really passionately like he's the finance. That is him. So Young Min, from the general election, I know him, he's been working really hard in finance and to be part of DSG in finance.
I'd like to point out also that I think Zach and Sean were the only 2 interns in the finance that actively looks out for stuff to do regarding finance stuff. A proof of that is that, as Zach has said, he's in rep right now, and he's on the process of replacing us finance people the next years. And Sean, I believe he is in academic senate. Yeah.
Just to like narrow down, I know there's a lot of names that are going around, so just for like a top 4 or top 5, it could probably be in any order. If you go to Zach, Yan-Ming, Van, Sean. Is that pretty much consensus, or is there anyone?
Aaron.
And Reggie?
Just like to add Steve's name because he has shown a deep technical understanding of the finance committee. And if I were to personally choose, I would put Rajiv in my top 3 or at least top 4.
Also, one reminder to please not speak until I call your name. Thanks. Aaron.
Yeah, I don't know what Abhi said, like, I feel like we're all focusing on like people who are like super like outgoing and like talk really well, and that's really, really cool, but it's very rare that you find someone who's like, who actually takes time to think about their responses and like what they're bringing forward. And Rajiv is like, because I work with them so extensively, and I've worked with all of them, I've seen all of them. He has that special quality that all of them don't really have, or like don't really showcase. And like, while they have different skill sets, he brings something unique that the others don't. And so he should be on the top. Yeah.
Reggie.
I just wanna cut it down. So for all the finance managers, can you guys just list your top 3, just for us to get an understanding?
Okay. I can start first. First of all, what definitely a lot for me is Zach. Number 2, Sean. 3 is toss up between Yan-Ming or Van.
I would say my top 2 are that and that. The third position I
Aaron.
Me will be Zach, Yang, and Rajiv.
Me, it would be Zach, Ben, and Yan-Ming.
I would also like to say Zach, Yan-Ming, and Rajiv, but Wan is really close for.
So, from what I can see and what I've heard from you guys, I don't mean to say this, but I feel like Yan-Ming and Van are both really take initiative and they kind of offer the same thing. So we don't really have to choose both of them. We just have to choose one of them because they kind of bring the same to the table. No, I like them a lot. Yan-Ming. All right, okay. Yan, okay, during flea market, Yan-Ming was under the rain, did that promo. I was like, damn, this guy. Sorry for language, but it's got a motivation. And then, well, I wouldn't say harass, but he has been harassing us program directors, proposing a lot of ideas. Like he proposed something to me, and then he proposed something to me. I was like, okay. He keeps on giving us ideas, and they both have initiative, but I think they kind of over the same thing, and we don't only have to choose one of them. I would go for Yan-Ming though.
Kevin.
I completely disagree with that, but I just want to, give a better statement on Rajiv. I want to second what Aaron said about his answers. He, like, all my answers, he gave the most, like, actual information and like solid stuff. For the two different programs competing for budget, I really liked his answer for that one. He said he would give it to the club that can't, or the clubber program that can't function without those funds, which is a very equitable response to the dilemma at hand, which is a lot of what we want to do as a DHG in its entirety. And and then his second answer for the senator part, he was like saying how he can be a good voice for other people and for other programs, which I think is a very important thing.
Chris,
I would like to extend by 5 minutes.
second. Done.
I second.
Any objections? Moved by Chris, seconded by Jenna to exact one, 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I think all of them are great candidates, and I think they would all be really great as budget analysts. And well, personally, I can't speak, on behalf of finance or anything, because I really don't know that much. As a senator, I really like Rajiv's answer. His previous experience being a TA and being able to work with students, his club involvement really speaks to me personally, because he knows what it's like then to be a student leader. And he knows that outside of finance, he knows that he can also help other senators. He can also help students, and he can be a student representative in other ways.
Just like one thing about Van's answers, I felt like they were like really well-rounded, but also like, at least compared to others, what I noticed him bring up a lot was like relationships with people. Like he would talk a lot about mentoring interns, about how they're the future senators, working with them, like giving tasks. And also even with the programs, like he was talking about interpersonal relationships, like building a relationship with them and getting their feedback. I felt like he stressed that more than the other people that I saw. And in general, he just had really well-rounded answers and like in-depth explanation for like how he would do things and like every question pretty much.
Nico.
Okay, so I want to explain more about my top three and why I chose them. And then what I like to think about is at least 2 senators that know the budget deliberation process, all the funds that we have like the back of their hand. And from what I have seen, Zach and Sean were the people that knew the budget like the back of their hand. Yeah, okay. So during like the budget presentation that we had, when I made the group, I was doing like a little social experiment just to see who would step up to lead that group. Because I didn't do anything. I just put them in the same group and told them, okay, I want this by the end of next week. At first, it was all scrambled eggs. Nobody knew what to do. No work was getting done until Zach and Sean was the one that stepped up and said, guys, let's start delegating tasks. If we keep on doing like this, we won't be finished by next week. That's why I have them at my top 2. As for my third person, I would like someone that has ideas that can bring finance to a better future, And from what I see, Van and Yanming and maybe Rajiv are the people that have the ideas, but it's just not yet to speak up just because they're scared or like anxiety and stuff. But I can feel within that they do have the ideas.
Yeah. Oh, wait, we had another form. You just go. No, you just speak. Okay.
I just want to echo what Jenna was saying. I haven't worked with many of them, but as for Van, he's also an intern in program, and he's like always reaching out to like us 3, asking like, what he can help on, and he went through like the walkthrough with us for the carnival. And even outside of those events, he's asking us like about how these events actually work, so he knows about like how like budgeting can work and how he can make revenue for events in the future. He's been like constantly messaging me on like Discord trying to like figure out how these events work, and I really like how he's trying to reach out to like other committees or other programs to kind of get insights on how everything works, because the big part of the budget is like also like putting on these events and programs. And so I really like how he's taken that initiative to kind of reach out to us for that. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree about Ben and Yanming as well. I mean, like during budget deliberations, it was like, I don't know, I kind of found it funny that like sometimes he would just like jump in as like public and like an intern and just be like, oh, let me explain this. So I think that really shows that he's like actually paying attention to what's happening. So it's good work ethic. Same with not same with, but also Ben, you know, he's always like trying to help and like he's like, I have this idea. And he's like, but I'm gonna do it next year, but I'm telling you. And I was like, okay, but so I think that shows that he's like committed to DSG, even if he's not like senator or whatever. And then I also just wanted to echo what Aaron said and also Aditya and I guess Javin too about Rajit. Like he wasn't like maybe the most loud of the candidates, but like what he said was it's like what's it, quality versus like quantity. Like the volume, maybe it wasn't as loud as some people would hope, but I think the quality of what he was saying really stood out and was very just like, you know, as everyone said, like well-rounded and like very thought out, which I think if you're a budget analyst, is a good quality that you need to have. And so, yeah.
Is there a motion to extend that?
I motion to extend by 2 minutes. How many? 3 minutes? 3 minutes, yeah.
Brinty.
Second.
Any objection? Moved by Jobber, seconded by Brinty to extend by 2 minutes. Davin.
Okay, I just want to comment on the Sean and Zach. I think that Zach has great answers, and since you already said that he's initiative and that he's proactive, it seems like he's a solid choice. But in terms of Sean, I do want to comment that like I didn't really pick up literally anything in my notes of a redeeming statement that he made during his interview. And as a budget analyst, a lot of it is right budget deliberations and then also like presentations as you guys did at the board trustees meeting right this past week. And if I can't pick up a single thing that he said there in that 20-30 minute span that he had, I think that that's something to consider when we're talking about Yeming and Ben, when we all have, and even Rajiv, who we said gave great answers and also are taking initiative.
Aaron.
Yeah, I think like agreeing with Jam said, definitely like Sean's like putting the work to be there, you know, but like he said something about like analyzing what he's doing for his like VC fund. Like this isn't a market. You don't get to predict things. You don't get to like do cold strats, something like that. So like that just like threw me off. It's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Luca.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do want to highlight that, I mean, these are the people that are going to be making the decisions for how the budget should move, and having creative and genuinely good answers to questions is pretty important. And so for me, that would be Yanming and Rajiv and Zach. Those are the 3 people that for me gave the most concrete, solid answers about when compromise happens, when budget requests, issues come up. So I mean, that's all I've done.
I definitely agree with Luca and Aaron because Sean is an extremely hardworking person. We were supposed to work on the same slides in the budget presentation and that gets to like 3 a.m. just to complete it. And yeah, he's extremely dedicated, but just based on what the interview answers were, Zach, Yanming, and Rajiv have to be went up.
Jason.
I just want to point out that as budget analyst, the bulk of your time in center, you can talk about being a senator, but the bulk of your time would probably be budget deliberations. And I think the guy that would actually like put the most improvements in that process and would like, if there's a problem, he would find the best way to solve it is Rajiv from the answers. So I would vote for Rajiv.
Aaron.
Yeah, I think it's closing off, based on what everyone's been saying, Yang and Rajiv have like the best ideas for budget integration. I don't know much about Zach, but like they're gonna be working with them next year, and we should really be supporting their pick. I know everyone wants to pick, you know, their thing is good, but they'll be the ones working with them. Really try to help them. So, yeah.
Any motion to extend the question? Okay, moving on to. Oh, no. If you could please raise your hand once you voted. Wait, was it him?
I could smell all the, oh, I have stayed. I want to sing for two.
Okay, has everyone voted? Okay. Okay, can someone get them back? Eighteen votes. Sean received 6 votes. Arn received 0 votes. Van received 19 votes. Lenny received 25 votes. Zachary received 27 votes, and Zane received 0 votes. And then 1 abstained, so the views like it was the Zachary, Lenny, and Zane. Congratulations to everyone, and thank you for everyone who ran. It was a very hard decision. But this is the end of our internal election. I'm going to do a moment.
Finish up and then we can all celebrate and have dinner.
Okay, are there any public comments? Asia.
Okay, I just wanted to make a public comment. I know when I came in, I said that the walkout thing had gotten postponed, but the students are still going to be doing it. So if anyone is interested, it's gonna be tomorrow, 3:30 in the free speech area, which is the main quad. If you come, please do not be disruptive. This is not like a riot. This is like a peaceful protest for the people who are suffering right now in Loroca when, yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening right now that we just want to bring awareness to. So if you're interested, tomorrow, 3:30, peaceful.
I just had a question for Dennis, sorry. So for this, like for the budget analyst, like, did all candidates like get like a majority, or is it gonna be a runoff? How does that work? Because.
Three.
Just got 3.
They all got a majority, or well, the ones that got, the highest votes got a majority, which is what, 14 or whatever it is right now. But yeah, so the top 3 vote getters, which were, what were the top 3 vote count?
Oh, the.
Yeah, so Zachary 27, Yanming 25, and then Van 19. So all 3 of those numbers are more than half the people here voting. So yeah, they're the elected.
How many votes did Rajiv get?
18.
But then there's also 1 abstain, right? Does that not mean majority then? Because since Yamin got 19, sorry, then since like the 3rd place person got 19, and since Rajiv got 18 and there's 1 abstain, that's not, oh, is that not like
The extension is for no one. We can't just resign it to a
No,
chief.
no, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying like how are runoffs like conducted exactly? Is it just when they have less than the majority or?
Well, in this case,
Uh-huh.
if, for this particular instance, if, say, was it man and was lots of question? So let's say, both Van and, Rajiv had gotten 18, or both gotten 90, okay, either way. Then we would have to have a runoff election to determine from those two, which one should be elected. But as it is, there's no need for any runoff election.
Matthew.
Just a quick reminder of the announcement I gave at the beginning of the meeting. The Vita DASG Student Leadership Award nominations are open and they're due May 19th. So please get them in as soon as you can. You can nominate yourself or someone else. Any student who's displayed leadership is eligible. The link is in the announcements channel and the Discord, and it's also on the Vita website, and it's in the Vita.
And
You also tried Heads Windex. I was wondering whether or not you would make it like an actual collaborative power cup. Marketing.
Sorry? Can you please repeat that?
Are y'all gonna make Heads Windex an actual drink? Like this collaborative market?
Yeah, we'll bring that up next week.
any other public comment? Okay, I have one public comment, is that this is my last Senate meeting chairing, and Luca will be chairing, we have 4 Senate meetings left. Advisor announcement.
Yeah, just especially for the budget analyst, but everyone else in the 24-25 Senate is here. Just so it's clear about the her funds and such, just real briefly. Those aren't necessarily extra funds, but they are funds that we've had left over from COVID, and because we got relief funds in the EARTH, Higher Education Grants and Relief Fund for COVID. So they will run out. But, and that's not necessarily something we should be trying to replenish. It's just something that we have because of the pandemic. We do need to worry about maintaining the regular budget once that's out, so that we can continue to support the programs we do at current equivalent levels, because a lot of expenses have gone up, inflation and cost of living adjustments and all that. So that is what we really need to focus on, and the finance committee has started that. One of the potential options is increasing the DASG membership fee from $10 to $12.
But you'll all be trained on this, so
Yeah.
don't worry about like. I don't have any, I know that folks are hungry, so I'm gonna.
Marisa or Dana, do you have any advisor announcements? I don't see any from online, so we'll be moving on to introduction of prospective senators. If we could have, all incoming elected senators or executives who have not reported at least 2 Senate meetings to come up and second.
Yeah, I think.
That we're picking up our business items, this is the last of what we do. But I also want to recognize Lydia for her fantastic work this year and for facilitating our Senate meetings. And I know she's not going bye-bye, but given that this is her official last Senate meeting, chairing the Senate meeting, can we just give her a big round of applause? Okay, So as we're doing this, is this the very last thing, or do we have announcements too? This is the very, okay, so I'm gonna ask all the vegetarians, as they're kind of finishing up there, all the vegetarians to come up first. And those that need halal meat to come up, second, and then Senate can come up third, and then the audience.
At the end, I'm very good.
Majority, whoever's working with that.